Hello, and how are you doing, Wing?
I'm doing great. I'm now currently teaching in Hong Kong because I'm from Hong Kong originally, and I'm teaching English as a second language in a secondary school, which admits students of the age of about 12 to 18 years old. And actually, I've been doing the same thing over the past few years, ever since I graduated from uni. And I really like teaching the language because it opens students up to more different opportunities around the world. So I'm feeling great.
Okay,
Mhm.
and I'd like to talk about your teacher development throughout your teaching experience. So, how do you think you developed as a teacher throughout your career?
From a newbie to, I would say, still a newbie, because a few years back I started teaching. I didn't really know much about teaching, even though I underwent professional development at the degree level. And but still, when I first stepped into the classroom, I didn't really know how to catch students' attention and so on, because after all, students are of very different learning styles. And also, my first school admitted students from all sorts of backgrounds. Some of them were from Southeast Asia, some of them were from the mainland China, and so on. So their mother tongue will be very different. And that's why I didn't really know what teaching would be to different people or to different students or how to catch their attention and so on. And over the years, I noticed that although I've got some more experience in teaching the curriculum, but the curriculum is ever changing itself. That's why I have to adapt myself. And over the years, I experienced the online teaching, I experienced some curriculum reform and so on. That's why I also have to adapt my teaching approach so as to fit the different contexts. And that's why even for today, I'm still learning bit by bit to communicate with my own teaching philosophy as well as my students' expectation. And that's why I'm still a newbie every day, I would say.
Okay, okay. So, and what would you let's say, what would you say as your main source of teacher development?
You mean sources, the sources of development. Yeah.
Yeah, like
Yeah.
what would you say is your
Um,
main source of development? Is it reading or attending conferences or online
yeah,
workshops or
indeed. Indeed, there are two main forms, I would say. One would be some professional development courses administered by the EDB, Education Bureau in Hong Kong, because it offers so many different courses. Some are the workshops, some are the seminars, sometimes even conferences, one of which we will be attending. My entire school will be attending one in December, actually, about teaching and learning. And then that will be one form of the sources. And other one would be in my school. My school actually values professional development. That's why there are so many professional exchanges over the years. And let's say within my school, my colleagues and I would engage in collaborative teaching planning every week. We'll meet together, discuss what to teach in the next few weeks and so on. We'll make some changes to the teaching schedule in case we can't really catch up with that. And then sometimes we also observe each other's lessons. Afterwards, we discuss our lessons and learn from each other's teaching pedagogies. Uh, I I will consider myself very fortunate because I got the opportunity to travel to the mainland China and had a collaborative lesson planning with some teachers in the mainland China from our sister schools. And that time we taught online first a writing lesson on the theme of unity is strength. That message is so interesting, isn't it? And actually, that adage also pretty up sums up the importance of a community practice as a means of professional development, which my school and I value very much.
Okay, thank
Mm.
you. And I would like also to ask you about your teaching philosophy and
Mm.
teacher identity. So, what do you consider as your teacher philosophy and what drives you in teaching?
Mm. So, um, language in use will be my teaching philosophy. Yeah, because my lessons are mostly contextualized, with all the learning activities contributing to a final task, hopefully, a meaningful one with real life relevance. And I also strive to instill positive value in my students. Maybe let me quote an example. Like last month, we celebrated the Mid-Autumn Festival in Hong Kong, and I asked my students to write riddles about food and decorations that we often eat and use for the Mid-Autumn Festival. And that was really a great opportunity to test their understanding of some figurative language while also decorating the classrooms because I asked them to hand around the classroom the lanterns with the riddles. So to give them a taste of what it is like using the language in real life would be my own philosophy. Yeah.
And do you think that your teacher identity um, has been influenced by teacher development?
Mm, I would say yes. Yeah,
And
yeah,
how?
yeah. Like what I said earlier, um, the forms of development of the professional development, there are mainly two, and one of which would be the professional exchanges with my colleagues, not just from my school, but also from other colleagues from other schools, let's say the sister school. And I'm also actually teaching in a school which has a sponsoring body. That's why there are so many schools under one single sponsoring body. So we get to interact with teachers from other schools, even in Hong Kong as well. So when I see others teaching, I would also reflect upon how I will be teaching in my own classroom. At the same time, um, I will be making some changes in my own classroom. So the identity would probably be changed as well. And yeah, I don't know if I'm answering the question.
Oh, you are. You are. So, yeah,
Uh,
okay. And now I'd like to talk about the upcoming conference. Yeah.
uh,
So, how do you envision the probably change that the conference might bring in your teacher development?
I suppose I will develop some meaningful professional relationships with colleagues from all around the world. And then that relationship will last after the conference. Then we can continue exchanging each other's ideas. Actually, I am one of the deferred scholars. I got the scholarship a few years back, and over the past few years, I've been already collaborating with some colleagues from previous years, the scholarship winners from previous years, I would say. One of the experiences would be recording myself for an Iranian Teacher's Day. And that time, that teacher asked me to reflect upon my teacher identity and my teaching philosophy and so on. And I already got a great deal from that experience. And I can envision that I will learn even more when I meet all the other colleagues face to face this year. And hopefully, our professional development continues afterwards. And I will see where I will go after gaining all those insights. Maybe I will develop something else later as well. Yeah.
Okay. And
Hmm.
as a round of question, I would like to ask you about the importance of teacher development. Why, in your
Hmm.
opinion, it's important?
Um, Teacher development is important, obviously, because I'm Probably it relates to my own teaching contexts. I teach in a day school, which means that I'm not just simply an English teacher. I'm also a teacher with a different roles, like a careers teacher, like a counseling teacher, and a class teacher. I have to communicate with different parties every day, dealing with different tasks. That's why developing myself, not just in terms of English, but as a teacher, is important because things change, kids change, expectations changes, and so on.
Okay.
Mm.
And um and one more. Yeah, you mentioned that you are like a newcomer in teacher field, right? In teaching in general. So what would be your one piece of advice to teachers who are new to the field?
Um, Expected, unexpected.
And why this advice? Why this particular piece of advice?
Sometimes we plan too much. Yeah, back in school when I was in uni, the professors would ask us to write a very detailed lesson plan, but it turns out mostly the lesson plan has to be changed ad hoc, depending on the time, depending on the student's motivation that day, depending on so many other factors. So do expect the unexpected and make app changes, appropriate changes at the appropriate time to the appropriate group of people.
So, Wing, what impact would you say the conference has had on your teacher identity?
Uh, Quite a lot of impact, I would say. The conference has really enhanced my awareness of multiple layers of teacher identity. Before attending the conference, my perspective would more likely to be confined to the classroom of my own classroom, where I felt heavily dependent on my students and the school environment. But the conference has allowed me to take a break from the hectic routine of everyday teaching, allowing me to search for my own passion. I still remember one of the conference events hosted by Tyson. He mentioned teacherhood and he also described it as the track, or let's say the journey, throughout which we have to notice our surroundings and also reflect upon our own core concerns. Actually, after the conference, when reading the list of talks and also workshops I attended, just by the title, I noticed that some terms appear very often, let's say the emergent language, creativity, and so on. Probably that suggests that I'm actually quite interested in all these areas, and these
Hmm.
would probably be the areas that I plan to explore further in my professional development. Apart from the more personal perspective, I've also
Hmm.
learned to situate myself within the wider teacher community, not just in my classroom, but
Hmm.
situating myself within the wider teacher community. During the teacher
Yeah,
conference event,
can I ask you
yeah,
about that? I
yeah,
wanted to ask you, like, I know that in your first interview you mentioned sort of
mm,
these relationships and like maybe global
mm,
relationships. So is that
mm.
something that you were able to develop?
Yeah, indeed, I could develop the global relationship with so many different parties, if I can use the term. Yeah, for
Hmm.
example, reconnection, because I did my CELTA in London and I encountered my CELTA tutor after a decade, literally a decade. So that would be reconnecting with the
Hmm.
global perspective in one sense. And on another would be as a deferred scholar, I would be able to have the opportunity to meet up with this year's scholars
Hmm.
and learning from them was quite an experience because they they've got newer insights than me because they
Hmm.
in yeah, basically there is a 2 year gap in between, right?
Yeah.
So reminding me of the continuous development that I need, the
Hmm.
continuous update that I need in terms of my teaching repertoire. And
Hmm.
one more party would be all those enthusiastic educators out there, including committee members from the teacher development section. And
Hmm.
we might not really be able to meet in person, Like now
Hmm.
we're only doing it online, but
Hmm.
we have already followed each other's IG and Facebook, then we get to
Hmm.
learn from each other
Yeah,
online. Yeah.
absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think that that becomes something else that you mentioned in your first interview was community of practice. And
Mm,
and I think so. I'm interested in how the conference has had an impact on your community of practice, or how do you think it will influence it in the future?
to be honest, I'm only one of the members of the English teaching department at my own school, so
Yeah.
I might not really be exerting a lot of impact. But
Hmm.
then on second thought, the conference itself is like a vital knowledge exchange platform. It serves
Mm.
as an example, inspiring me to translate the collaborative spirit of the conference into my everyday teaching practice. Let's say, exchanging ideas and insights with my colleagues that can already be very helpful, I would say.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah. So
yeah,
Wing,
yeah.
we know, as you mentioned, your scholarship was deferred,
Mm.
and you weren't able to come for a couple of years. So we're delighted that you were actually able to have this experience in the end and join us. So thank you for coming and participating, and we hope to see you at future TDSIG activities and participating in those.
Thank you so much. Thank you for everything as well.